In recent years, sustainability has become a buzzword some companies use to gain the respect of consumers. However, other companies have a genuine passion for cutting back on emissions, leading in sustainability goals, and creating a better environment for future generations to flourish. In today's program, Executive TV will speak to some of these companies that are leading the way in sustainability goals, explore the challenges they face, and what the future looks like. Ainscough Crane Hire is a market leader for lifting solutions and services to the infrastructure, construction, power generation, and industrial markets.
Ainscough is a mobile crane business, United Kingdom based. It was founded 50 years ago next year in Wigan by the Ainscough family. It is now the UK's largest mobile crane business with 30 depots around the country. It's within 40 miles of 90% of our lifts, and it has a full range of mobile cranes supported by nearly 1,000 colleagues with some of the best training, technical managers, contract lift managers and operators in the country.
The International Powered Access Federation, or IPAF, is a not-for-profit organisation that promotes the safe and effective use of powered access equipment by providing technical advice and information.
IPAF was formed in 1983 by a small group of rental companies and manufacturers of powered access equipment in the United Kingdom. So it's 41 years old this year. It was formed to represent the powered access industry and to promote the safe and effective use of powered access machines around the world. 41 years on, we now have 1,700 members in 81 different countries around the world. We certificate and run the operator training scheme for operators of mobile elevating work platforms across the globe. And over 200,000 people each year are trained through the IPAF operator training programs. Some of the other work we do, we're a trade association, we're members owned and we're a not-for-profit. We solely focus on improving the industry for the benefit of our members. So we produce a lot of best practice guidance. We try and improve safety through safety campaigns. We produce posters, toolbox talks, a lot of guidance for our members to use with their customers who are the actual end users of the machines, the operators of the equipment. We also try and influence regulators. So we work in the United Kingdom with the Health and Safety Executive, in North America with OSHA, in Switzerland with SUVA, and with the regulators all across the globe to try and influence, interpret what they're saying to make sure that our customers, our members, understand the regulations in each country. We also represent the industry on a lot of standards committees as well, whether it be the European standards, the British standards, or the ISO standards, the international standards.
Lantra develops training courses and nationally recognised qualifications that are delivered through a network of training provider partners.
So Lantra is a nationally recognised awarding body. Our history stems back until after the Second World War. So we're actually nearly 70 years old. We were known then as the Agricultural Training Board. Basically, we were funded by central government in England, and it was really to upskill the agricultural community and ensure that they had all the skills that they needed to kind of take the country through the post-war boom. So, you know, producing lots of food, getting the UK economy back on track. Over the years, obviously, we've evolved. Government funding became sparse around 10 to 12 years ago. And Lantra then became more commercial in its activities. And what you will see is that traditionally our focus was in agriculture, forestry, but we've actually expanded, and now we have a very wide remit across a number of land-based and environment industries, even stemming into highways, logistics, warehousing. It really does cover a kind of a very broad church of activity. In our status as a national recognised body, we are able to award certification for training and qualifications, and we do that for all of those industries that I've just mentioned. So we are training people to safely look after all of the trees, but at the same time also making sure that roadworks on the motorways that people travel on daily are also safe when, for example, works need to be done, so traffic cones, etc. We train people in working in those jobs as well. In the last year or so, we have expanded that function to include bringing new entrants into the industry. So that could be youngsters that we're trying to engage with when they're at school, talking to them about the exciting jobs and careers that exist in our industries. Or since COVID particularly, we're seeing a lot of career changes. So people who've worked in offices for decades and all of a sudden they're going, I don't want to do that anymore. I actually want to be outside working in nature, in the outdoors. So Lantra is actively promoting careers, providing advice and information, and will direct people to apprenticeships, short courses that they can do so they can either make that leap into the industry or make that change from one industry to another.
Across different industries, the environmental question still comes to the forefront as companies find different ways of being sustainable.
The environmental question for mobile cranes is a really interesting one, and it's something I've really enjoyed focusing into. At the end of the day, these are some of the heaviest equipments that get out on our roads, with some of these equipments over 100 tons, and with multiple trucks required to move and set up some of our bigger cranes. And the answer is, if you can start that journey effectively for mobile cranes, then you're sending a message that anybody can make the positive steps on the environmental journey. We've done that through a number of steps. Firstly, a lot of it's through engagement and training of our people. We've reduced fuel consumption, improved MPG by engagement, using technology so that you can see what people's driving standards are like, and made it a really positive engagement. That also enhances safety, obviously, your driving best practice. We reorganised our 30 depots into areas around the whole country and took roughly 30% of our fuel consumption out by doing that. We've done other technologies. We've engineered our tackle boxes. This is for the equipment that goes on the back of the cranes to make them safer so that you can access them from the ground. Also to take nearly a ton of weight out of that. So that's a ton you're not traveling down the road with. There are engineered solutions that's coming with the latest cranes with stage 5 engines, which obviously are that much more efficient. And indeed the capability of new cranes, meaning you can potentially use a smaller crane, or indeed it can work in higher wind conditions so you're more efficient on site. And all of that's been backed with us by the use of HVO. So having 30 sites around the country has enabled us to effectively create a mini petrol forecourt station with HVO. It's green HVO. And as a result, all of our cranes and all of our trucks run 100% on HVO. The combination of all of those from an environmental position is we are now carbon neutral, and we have been for 18 months. And in real terms, we've taken what was over 20 million kilograms of carbon and reduced that to significantly under 1 kilogram of carbon over the last 2.5 years.
In terms of sustainability, our members, based on the government's targets for reducing emissions, our members have been very quick to react. Our members are made up of manufacturers, rental companies and training companies, but our manufacturer members have been very quick to react to changes in legislation by producing reduced emissions models of machines. Historically, a lot of the larger machines were in diesel only. They're now coming up with biofuel options. Initially it was tier 2 engines, tier 3 engines, tier 4, tier 5. Now the larger machines are now available in biofuel models and even lithium battery models. And actually the facility that we're in today has produced one of the world's first, a hybrid machine which is electric and hydrogen. So the industry is moving very quickly to help the world be more sustainable. In terms of another way that we help our members with sustainability, we have joined the Supply Chain Sustainability School, which has got hosts, reams and reams of information on helping businesses be more sustainable. And us being a member, our members have access to all of that information and can get it directly through links from our website. So we do a lot of signposting.
Okay, so Lantra has a number of sustainability goals. We have some very high-level corporate ambitions, which are centred around our emissions. So a few years ago, we did an assessment of our emissions and looked at areas where we needed to take action. And they include our energy footprint. So Lantra is based, we have a head office in the West Midlands, but we also have offices in Scotland, Wales and Ireland, both Northern and the Republic. So obviously our biggest kind of source of emissions is head office, which houses over 100 people. So we're able to do almost like an audit of our emissions and say, okay, we're an outdated building. The building is over 40 odd years old. So back in those days, kind of energy efficiency wasn't at the forefront of designers' minds for buildings. So we are actually entering a period of upgrade for our building. Firstly, looking at our source of energy and going more sustainable with that. We'll be looking at sustainable lighting, and we are also scoping out the introduction of solar panels. So we're almost like doing a feasibility study to look into that. An area that we have become aware of is electronics and electricals becoming a really significant waste stream in the UK. So we partner with the Environment Agency and a recognised charity called We Charity, and they basically help us recycle, upcycle, repurpose all of our electricals. So that's a relatively new partnership that we have established on the waste side. From a social sustainability perspective, we're very keen to give something back to the local community. So we're based on an agricultural campus in a rural environment on the edge of Coventry. But Coventry is a very large city, known for its areas of deprivation. So last year we worked with an organisation to produce educational books to take into schools, to educate young primary school children about how cities can look very kind of barren and full of concrete, but actually with some care and attention, we can create these green spaces and get biodiversity. So your insects, your pollinators, your bees, your butterflies. And Lantra actually does outreach going into these schools to talk to young people about the environment around them, the need for them to respect it, in a hope that they will be the next generation of people working in our industry. So that's one of the things that we're doing for social sustainability.
There are many different and unique industries across the UK, but they all face similar challenges. The war in Ukraine, COVID-19 pandemic, and Brexit left lingering after effects on companies still felt today.
So Ainscough obviously works within the broader construction industry. We all know there are a few challenges out there at the moment, from either macroeconomic environmental impacts all the way back to then COVID and the impact of the war in Ukraine, inflation, etc. here. When you bring that into the mobile crane sector, there are a number of specific challenges. The most obvious of them actually is around labour provision. So since COVID and potentially Brexit, we've seen an exodus of some of the older colleagues across the whole construction industry. And as a result, the current status of competency and capability and enough competent workforce, trained workforce, to be able to support the projects that are required to be delivered across the UK is a challenge now. And it's a challenge now in what is a flat and volatile market. You imagine the scale of that challenge then when demand and confidence starts to come back into the market. That's exactly the same in the mobile crane industry. We've gone a long way over the last couple of years to really engage with our colleagues for a range of media and face-to-face initiatives, and fundamentally also to improve the terms and conditions for not just the Ainscough colleagues, but being the largest and the industry leader in the mobile crane sector, that clearly has a knock-on effect across the wider mobile crane sector.
The challenges of introducing new technology and innovation are quite significant, actually. A lot of people don't like change. So when we create some innovative new e-learning course, people still want to do it the old-fashioned face-to-face classroom way. So when we're developing courses, since I've been in post for the last 4.5 years, every course that we have produced, we've got an e-learning option, but we still have to retain the face-to-face option for those people that want to do it the old-fashioned way. When we introduced our ePal app, you don't need a card and a certificate anymore. Some people still insist on having a card and a certificate, so we've got to retain that as an option. We charge more for that. So the cheapest, we're trying to encourage sustainability. We're trying to encourage them going with the new technology. We've also introduced the option to do some of our operator training using a virtual reality simulator, of which there are now, but that's quite cost prohibitive. So a lot of our rental companies couldn't afford to purchase one of these, or weren't prepared to purchase one of these. You know, potentially it's a risk that they would not get their return on investment. So we love to embrace technology and improvement and sustainability, but sometimes it's the cost, or some people just don't like change. But eventually, I'm certain of this, there will be no more plastic cards. When you pass a course, it will be digital only. We're moving that way very, very quickly. Worldwide now, 62% of people that do our training courses opt for the digital certificate through the app. In the UK, that's 75% actually. So the UK have embraced it more than most. When it gets to 80-85%, that'll be the point where we said no more cards, I think.
So Lantra faces some challenges in the delivery of its training. So basically, we're quite a small organisation at our head office. We're over 100 people. We deliver training to 114,000 people a year. And the way we do that is not through those people at head office. It's through a network of training providers. Now we have up to 500 of them spread across the UK. And we have issues, as does the rest of the industry, with an ageing workforce. So we need to look at recruiting and onboarding young instructors so that they can deliver Lantra training into the future. The industries that we work with are really remote. So kind of, isolated geographies across the country. So therefore, we need a really good geographical coverage of our instructors. And that's an issue for us. Sometimes people will go on our website and look for a training course in peatland restoration, and they might find that it's like 100 miles away because that's where our only instructor is. So Lantra is going on a recruitment drive to promote the opportunities that being a provider comes with. Another challenge that we face, because we are very outdoors in the industries that we're working with, is the weather. So probably our training courses are taking place in the most inclement weather conditions, heavy rains, wind, and as they increase, as we're seeing with climate change, then that presents us with challenges where we have to be agile and say, well, actually, maybe this part of the course we'll have to run in a barn, and then we'll, get out onto the site, maybe into the forest later in the day.
The government has a huge role to play in not only sustainability goals, but also propping up different industries within the UK.
In terms of regulation, there are a couple of really key areas where the government could help, and indeed they'd be pushing at an open door. The first is at present, the mobile cranes have an exemption from the regulation that requires them to abide by the traffic commissioner. What that effectively does is it means there's no consistent standard. So whilst we in-house have brought out a minimum standards document and a best guide practice, this guide is agreed by us, the industry, the mobile crane operators. It's supported by our customers as the right way to go. It's been endorsed and indeed was built by the HSC with their input and the DVSA and indeed Traffic Commission input. So everybody's saying this is the right regulation to go and operate by. Now is the time to remove that exemption, because what ultimately that allows us to do is have the level playing field, because that brings that under the Traffic Commissioner and that allows it to be properly policed, and everybody therefore become obliged to work to what bluntly should be considered the minimum safe operating practice for any mobile crane working in the country. Alongside that, there's work going on at the moment from ACPO, the Association of Chief Police Officers, to look at STGO regulation. And I hope and have a good level of confidence that that will move things forward. But there is no doubt that STGO regulation, which effectively is the regulation that, that focuses on heavy or large equipments travelling on the highway, needs to be consistent across the entire country to allow effectively the whole construction industry to be able to get on safely with their job, on time, in full and efficiently, whilst allowing clearly the police and the regulators to have confidence that no, we're not putting something particularly heavy over a bridge that can't take it, or out on the road at a time where it causes unnecessary risk or congestion. There's too much variability in that and interpretation. That needs to come together and be clear and consistent. That will benefit industry, it will benefit safety, it will benefit the general public.
In terms of the government helping to improve sustainability and or safety, I think they do quite a bit already. They come up with the legislation, the NRMM legislation, which forces people down the more sustainable route in terms of reducing emissions on equipment. I think what it doesn't do is help support the extra cost of doing that. The rental companies are bearing the brunt of having to spend up to 25% more on a more sustainable machine. The contractors potentially are not prepared to pay the extra in rental rates. So some kind of incentive to for the rental companies to buy more sustainable equipment, like the government did with people buying electric cars at the start, might be helpful. In terms of safety, I think the government do quite a bit. The Health and Safety Executive, we work very closely with on behalf of our members, and are very engaging and work with us as the experts from a powered access perspective. We also work with the major contractors group, Build UK, who've got links to government, and we've had lots of great meetings, a lot of them since post-COVID, to help get industry back on its feet. I think the government do a bit, but I think in terms of the sustainability angle, I do think some potential tax breaks on buying more sustainable kit might help. We've certainly seen that in other countries such as Italy.
So the net zero target for 2050 is really ambitious, and Lantra sees that we have a key role in helping the industry meet that. Now, farming, if you look at agriculture as a sector, it represents 10% of UK greenhouse gas emissions, which is quite significant. So out of the vast range of industries that we work with, we are probably more focused on helping agriculture with that transition. The other reason is that agriculture in England, well, across the UK, is dominated by small and micro businesses, and they're often the ones that need the training and advice to help them to get to net zero. So if we take farming as a operation and the kind of environmental footprint that it has, well, we have, use of chemicals for control of pests, insects, etc. So we are working with partners to provide training that will take farmers away from being so reliant on those chemical products and more around looking at, are there natural ways that they can control pests and predators. We're also looking at water quality. Obviously, with the weather as it is in the UK, we're getting an awful lot of rain, and that sees a lot of the chemicals or animal waste leaching into rivers and watercourses. So we work with farmers on training them with novel fencing design and different management techniques that they can use to reduce runoff into water.
How industries around the UK develop with sustainability in mind remains a big question when looking to the future. Companies committed to sustainable goals are seeing growth, but not at a pace they should be. It will be interesting to see how the government supports companies, commits to sustainability, and if net zero by 2050 is indeed achievable.